Hi, Brett. It's so good to have you here today. How you doing?
Good, doing very well. Thank you for having me.
I got to get a sneak peek at your beautiful daughter on the way in, so that's why I'm smiling as big as I am. She is just adorable.
10 months, and I feel like it was yesterday that she came home. And what a crazy story when she came home. It was interesting. She came home the next day. I then went to the hospital because I had bad stomach issues. They said, maybe you have bad gas. And I'm like, I can't go back home. My wife just gave pregnant, and I'm going to come back and say, I had bad gas. That's why I went to the hospital. Some days later, it started to hurt really bad again. I go to the hospital and they said my appendix burst last week. So I was a whole week going through it.
Oh,
So I was
no.
like, yes, thank you. And they're like, why are you thanking us and so excited? I'm like, because I'm not crazy. And now I have an excuse of why I actually went to the hospital. And they're like, this is the weirdest. I've never,
Never had this happen
to have their
before.
appendix burst. And I'm like, just get it out, go back home because I have a 2-week-old now.
Yeah, that's memorable. I get it. My wife just gave birth. I can't just have a little bit of gas and be sidelined.
I was literally so embarrassed. I'm like, doctor, you got to think of something.
It's fantastic. I first met Brett D'Alessandro a number of years ago. We were introduced by a mutual friend who is on the board of one of his companies. And there was something about Brett and his wife, Alexa, that just really spoke to me. Very genuine, warm, kind, and you can just see this deep sincerity about their mission. Brett is the founder of Backpacks for Life. It's a nonprofit that supports homeless and at-risk veterans, primarily through 2 programs, a backpack distribution program and a coaching and mentorship program. Both programs are designed to help veterans, first and foremost, feel human again. There's an emphasis on building and establishing trust with them. And secondly, to offer resources that are specifically tailored to their individual needs. I respect and admire Brett deeply. When I first started doing the podcast and had a guest wish list in my brain, Brett was on it. And so I'm so glad that's actually coming to be now. And welcome, Brett. It's great to have you here.
It is always a pleasure. And it really is. The organization, like you said, talking to people, humanizing people. Why do we do that? Because I generally love to talk with people. And that's why I love to go on podcasts and spread the good message about the nonprofit, but also meet other amazing, like-minded people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit more about Backpacks for Life and or anything else you want to share.
The nonprofit was founded because of my own experience in navigating resources. When I came back from my deployment to Afghanistan, I was in the Marines for 6 years. It was definitely a rough deployment. Came back home, had a hard time integrating back in society. I just really lost my purpose and my way. I was going to a doctor's appointment up in Rhode Island. I saw a veteran on the street. And again, I thought I was just this weak-minded Marine that really couldn't handle it. I was very ashamed of myself and the feelings I had. I was just turned 21 at the time. So I saw this vet and I went back to my motel and got my backpack and filled it up with some warm layers that I had for my deployment left over. Gave it to the gentleman. Like, wow, there's other veterans that are suffering. It's not just the veteran, it's the family that is also going through this. And there's a lot of individuals that are suffering. And went through some resources and I was talking about the things that I've went through. And he's like, I've never heard of any of that. I'm like, wow, like it's literally a mile down the road from you with these services. So at that point, maybe I can continue to serve individuals, especially my brothers and sisters, by just helping them get connected to the resources. So I would just drive around 5 homeless vets and just let them know what's out there. What can complement that? Maybe a backpack. So I gave this individual a backpack. Maybe I can fill it with some supplies, toiletries, and most importantly, resources and give them out to vets. And from there, I called my girlfriend at the time and now wife. And I was like, hey, I have this awesome idea. And she's like, wow, that flame inside you has been reignited. You have that purpose again, that glow. That's how the Backpacks for Life got started.
There's so much I want to ask about that and your story as we keep moving forward, but what an amazing thing. It's one thing to see someone by the side of the road and maybe even pull over and have a conversation, but to go all the way back to your hotel, gather supplies, go back and deliver it, that takes a lot of intention and back to what you said, humanity, to just go that extra step. And sounds like that was a click moment for you. Tell us also anything personally that you may want to share, something that people may not know about you, something that lights you up, anything you want to throw in.
It's funny. I collect just like weird, unusual things. I love things that are unusual, weird. I have the highest rated Manuka honey on earth. There's like a little jar of it. I have a T-Rex tooth, sports memorabilia, comic books, and all just things that are interesting I like to collect.
That's pretty eclectic. What makes one Manuka honey better than another one?
The UMF rating, it's how much positive benefits are within that honey. You could take the Manuka honey and put it on a wound and it'll actually help heal it properly. So almost antiseptic, antimicrobial, antibacterial properties that it has with it.
I didn't know you could actually apply it. Interesting. So what are the pronouns that you use?
He and him.
He, him. Okay. And the podcast is about the extra layers that underrepresented people navigate as we wind our way into the already complicated career landscape. You talked about being a veteran, but when you're telling people, okay, here are the ways that I define myself as being part of an underrepresented or underserved community, how do you describe that to people?
It's interesting. You ever have people like, oh, you're talking about that homeless individual on the street and you're like, oh, they're crazy. Or so people say these things and not really actually meaning like how horrible that situation is for that individual that's going through something like that. I'm a veteran who has dealt with a lot of trauma, but also using alcohol to really cope. So being in recovery for, almost 10 years now, there's so much more to it than just, oh, just stop. It's somebody who's feeling anxious. Oh, well, why are you feeling anxious? Just stop feeling anxious. You need a lot of tools, like a quarterback needs a whole line of defense. You need that whole line of defense to really help you out. You really got to heal the wounds, healing yourself. And there's just so many layers to it. And really seeing from the inside what recovery is and what addiction is and going through it. And then the light at the end of the tunnel and how much better you feel once you are sober. Just showing others that like, hey, I'm in recovery, and like, wow, if it wasn't for your family helping you out, you could have been homeless. And people are like, oh, that seems daunting. And you really had to white knuckle it. And it's quite the opposite. I'm so happy that I'm in recovery and not using alcohol and having that mental clarity again and being able to just be myself.
That's amazing. I also want to thank you for your service. I've always wondered, is that the best thing to say? Thank you for your service. It always sounds a little trite to me.
I know some vets are like, oh, actions are louder than words, but honestly, something's better than nothing. I do appreciate it. Others appreciate it. Some vets just get a little shy because I'm just like you.
I'm curious to know more about the actual experience of coming back from Afghanistan. It was traumatic. It was an intense deployment from what you've described. So to whatever degree you're comfortable sharing, what was it like coming from there back here?
When you're looking at kids, went in at 17, majority of the military, especially the ones that are in the action, are younger individuals. You got somebody who just got out of college that might be an officer. So you're looking at 21, 22, 23, leading a platoon. So you got these 21 to 23-year-olds leading a platoon of 17 to 20-year-olds. So it's a young group of individuals out there fighting and away from their family. And this has become their families. We did lose some individuals over in Afghanistan. And then when we came back home, you got a suicide here, a suicide over there. And it stinks because you wish you could have done something. What if I did this? Why him and not me? So you got all that stuff just flying around in your mind. And we were a motor T unit. So trucks and stuff, IEDs tend to like trucks. They're like bombs that are placed in the ground that are hidden, and when you drive over them, they explode. We got hit a lot of times. It was interesting. When I was in it, you're so hyper-focused that you really can't concentrate on anything else. If I was in Afghanistan getting shot at, there's no anxiety. It forces you into the present moment. You almost felt like free. Wow, I don't have to think about anything. Taxes, bills. What you're actually going through is very traumatic, but you don't have time to really recognize it because you're just focusing on surviving and making sure your other Marines aren't getting killed. And so when you come back home, you get the honeymoon phase and then you're like, wow, it all just hits you like running into a wall of bricks. Then you start to analyze it all and you're like, wow, this is a lot. This is overwhelming. You've never been through that situation before. You really don't know what to do or how to analyze those feelings. If I get help, doesn't that make me a weak person? I'm this man in the Marines and stuff. You feel ashamed and you don't really want to talk to anybody about it.
That just pulls you in deeper, I would imagine.
Yeah, and they train you how to go to Afghanistan and how to survive, but they don't tell you how to leave. Nobody has this roadmap. And if I ask for help, especially mental health, abusing drugs and alcohol, or just addiction in general, it's really taboo. You just feel like the stigma about it. So you really just try to throw it under the rug, or you get help in the shadows. So you don't try to be public with it.
It's interesting. I also have had times in my life where I was going through something very difficult. I remember feeling a sense of actually being outside of my own life, disconnected from my life. Everything that I knew previously, the things that grounded me, seemed so shaken by the experience that I was going through that I couldn't connect to it anymore. Is that a bit of what you felt as well?
Absolutely. And there's a huge but at the end of that. And this is not a just military thing. People are like, oh, PTSD is just for veterans, or anxiety is just for somebody who goes through something super traumatic. But even if it is or isn't super traumatic, it doesn't have to be just military oriented. It could be anything that you're going through. There's all different kinds of journeys. However, the big but at the end is that is a sign of strength. So if I've went through trauma and I'm going to a doctor, and maybe if it's learning mindfulness meditation or just a general meditation, or maybe I'm going to go do some equine therapy with horses, or maybe fishing, or finding the therapeutic roadmap that really works for you is a sign of strength. You go to the gym, right? You go to the gym and work out. What's wrong with working out the muscle in your skull? These stigmas are just a bunch of hogwash and BS. And seeking help on your own self-will, it's a really noble thing, and it's very difficult to do, and acknowledge that you need help. When I went to rehab and I went through all these programs, yes, they helped me get off of alcohol, but it made me be a better business person, a better husband, a better father. You have the tools and the knowledge to build your life.
That's such amazing insight. Not only does it destigmatize working on oneself in whatever way it might be, but it flips it on its head. It says, not only isn't it bad, but it's actually the best thing you could possibly do.
You start small, but you go, oh, I don't want to run a marathon. That's too long. Do a half mile, walk for 10 minutes. For instance, a walking meditation, you walk around and you observe things, and then you try to use all of your senses. So you see a leaf on the ground. Okay, what does that leaf look like? Okay, how does it feel? What does it smell like? Can you hear it? And you go through all of your senses, and it just starts to calm you down. Nothing in life that is fulfilling or is going to better yourself is easy. There's no quick fix to anything, and people want instant gratification. I do as well. I want a pill and I want it to be gone. So you just want to be very cautious of the quick fixes. We want to just make sure that we deal with things on a holistic approach towards recovery. So if you're dealing with something, I always recommend to go and seek out a group of other individuals that are like-minded, that are also going through it. What is it, the quote? A smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from others. Don't reinvent the wheel. People always say, oh, it's just me, or I feel so isolated. Trust me. Yes, you are unique, but the situation that you're going through is most likely not unique, which is a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, because it means that we're not alone. There are other people that we can learn from and lean on. And that's my hope with this podcast, is that people feel seen, can find a place of feeling that they belong, and learn from each other's experiences and how the challenges perhaps ultimately fueled other people's strengths, and how they can do the same. I will say, though, that I think what veterans go through is about as extra as any of those stories could possibly be. And the amount of respect and awe, really, that I have for anyone's ability to experience what I can't even imagine that you experienced, then come back and be able to turn the corners that you did. If that's not inspiring, I don't know what is.
Going back to therapy, I really just want to make certain that people understand that there's thousands of different ways of therapy, and it's not just talking to somebody. There's so many different things that you can do. So if it's peer-to-peer groups, fly fishing, racing clubs, hiking clubs, you can just find individuals to hang out with. And then you can look at some of the other ways for adults, psilocybin, which is mushrooms. And you have these other things that are like unconventional therapeutic approaches. Ayahuasca is definitely one. These are things that have really helped somebody with severe trauma, especially cannabis as well. You know, things that make you feel good could have a tendency to be abused. So you just want to be very careful with what you use and how you use it, and is administered under a doctor, and always asking questions. Don't just do something. Ask questions, do research before you try anything.
Yeah, know that there are a lot of options, and just be smart about research and have someone to guide you through it, I think is what I'm hearing you say as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something underlying the reason why you're abusing that drug or situation. There's always a reason why, and trying to figure out that reason why, and then healing that, and then everything else will then come after it.
Yeah, getting to what's really at the root of it. And speaking of that, you talked about going through recovery. You talked about the moment when you passed the homeless man and brought the backpack to him. To what degree was your personal recovery and that moment where you had that connection with that veteran intertwined?
You have to have that will and the want to get better. You have to have that flame reignited inside you. I was going through these places and things, and being 100% honest, I didn't really care to get help. I was just getting dragged through these things and do this and voluntold to do that. So being that veteran, seeing that I can make a difference, my brothers and sisters, suicide or KIA, killed in action overseas. And I was like, wow, they would have done anything to be able to come back home to their family. And look at me, I'm just here wasting this time in my life away. I want to do something in memory of them. That kind of gave me my purpose again. Me getting better wasn't really for myself in the beginning. I saw somebody else. I saw my family that I was dragging them through this, and that wasn't fair. And so in the beginning, I had that flame reignited for others, but then come to find out that I had to do it for myself in order to then be available for others. You have all these tools in the world, but if you don't have the will or the want to get better, you really can't.
That's really interesting. Knowing, just like you said, there's a million paths to therapy, and there's a million paths also, I think, to probably realizing that some sort of intervention is needed.
You can't really grit through it. I mean, you can grit through it, but it's not a forever thing. You grab your fists and I'm going to do this. That will only bring you through it so long. You really have to find that will and the want, that motivation to get better, but also have a line of defense, because if you get caught back up in this situation, you want to know multiple things to help yourself out. So in the beginning, it's hard, but it's so fulfilling at the end, and nothing in life is easy that is truly fulfilling.
Yeah. How is it that you approach the veterans that you work with to really connect with their humanity and to build trust with them? Because as you said, if you're forcing it on people, it's very likely going to fail. So what did you learn from your experience, and how did you bring that to the work that you do?
In the movie Castaway, he went crazy because he had no human interaction, and he talked to this ball named Wilson. You got to reintegrate them into society and reacclimate them. So it's not just, hey, let's get you housing, let's get you a job. It's making them feel like they're not just a garbage can on the side of the road, and acknowledging them. So we do that by this backpack that we give to them, it has high quality items in it, really nice stuff. Everything is brand new. So they feel self-worth by giving them something of good quality. I must be a good quality individual myself, or have good qualities as well. And hanging out with them, we'll go and get food. We'll just talk about sports and just talk about things in general. And this is funny because some vets are like, are we going to be talking about resource and this? I'm like, no, we're just hanging out and talking. Like, wow, this is cool to just hang out and talk with somebody. Yeah. So that's like really the first step, is humanizing them again and building them back up to have that flame reignited inside them to want to get help. Because if you're forcing somebody to do something, it's a waste of time. Making them feel that they have this self-worth and they can get better, and knowing that I have somebody to help me out. And then from there, we'll start to slowly, because we don't want to overwhelm them, help them get connected to resource here and there. So this vet that I met in Jersey City a couple months ago, the first step, we put him in a motel, we got him a phone. Imagine going home and your house is gone and you have no records or anything, no credit card, no ID. It's difficult to really do anything nowadays. That's the first process, is just getting all these records, getting a roof over their head, getting a phone so we can communicate with them and they can get on appointments. That's really the
basic big infrastructure. Yeah.
Basic infrastructure, building that. And then from there, then we'll start to, okay, let's try to talk about maybe food stamps, or maybe affordable housing, or mid to long-term housings. And then there's all like a bunch of like little fill-in things, especially like I mentioned before, equine therapy, mindfulness. Is it fly fishing, hiking groups, all these fun activities that you enjoyed, but now we can get you to enjoy those with other individuals, and something you might have not enjoyed for a long time because you just haven't had the chance to do that. And now we want to start getting you connected with other individuals, maybe do a lunch meeting with them or dinner to have them just break bread with other individuals and get them acclimated.
And I think about it in the workplace. Those are some things that we do that are really critical, or should be doing. Just simply spending time. I had someone on the podcast recently, and we can get so transactional at work and forget to connect and forget to just spend time that isn't directly associated with necessarily a task or who's going to do what by when, but really have intentional time to be with people. And that's really where the magic starts to happen, I think.
I would say with repetition and doing the same thing over again, it just, like a perfect example is like a police officer constantly going through something traumatic. What was it? It was some show or movie where a guy was talking about how he came to a scene and his wife was in a car crash and she was dead. And he was going over the scene and these two cops were talking about, where are we going to go get dinner? And he was like, dinner? I can't even process that. But again, nothing against the police officers, just, they have to get dinner. This is their job. They're going to go to the crime scene and they have to get dinner. But wow, that right there is something that I have to just remember. That's come to me. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm just like, oh, stop this and that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no. They are going so traumatic. That is horrible for me to say. But if you're going through for so long, you have to check yourself and know why you're doing these things and not just making people with like numbers. But it's hard because sometimes people want instant gratification. People want to be like, okay, how can I do this as fast as possible? But sometimes that's not the answer. Doing something as fast as possible is just going to delay the process. So really working with somebody, slowing things down, like, oh, it's going to take a long time, but at least you're going to help that individual. I've seen people and organizations, how can we make this process more effective and efficient? And they're like, okay, let's make it faster. And that's not really the case, especially with helping somebody heal.
I'm laughing just because when I first went to therapy, I was very much in busy mode. I was like thriving on busy mode. And first thing I said to my therapist was like, okay, how long do you think this is going to take, this whole therapy thing? And she laughed, and she still to this day gives me a hard time about that, because that's just not how it works. But
it slowed down. And
I think to your point, you have to remember why you're doing it. It's so cool of you to admit that you have moments that you're like, okay, let's speed this up, because I think that as we all move through our careers, we should assume there's going to be moments where we just lose the spark, lose the purpose, wander a little bit off the path, because we're human and there's a lot going on in our lives. And that thing that you said about check yourself and think about, why am I doing what I'm doing? How am I showing up? What's the impact I'm hoping to have? And knowing that ultimately, like you said, you slow down and connect to all of that, chances are you're going to actually get a much better result, even if it takes a teeny bit longer, but you're doing things in the right way. And another thing you and I talked about in the past was communication and how we communicate with people. I remember a story about a vet that you told me where he was being communicated with in a way that was dehumanizing and somewhat demeaning. And he was then lost to the work. Can you tell me more about that experience?
And this is actually the perfect situation where the vet, homeless for a couple of years, got him into a housing facility that's like midterm housing, got him up there. They asked to look through his stuff. He could have just been grasping at any chance to find an excuse to want to get out and say, oh, this is the reason why I left. But at the same time, this person, hey, I got to search your stuff. Oh, it's my personal stuff. I don't care. Get your stuff out. Let me search through it. Oh, you want housing or not? Let me search through your stuff. Else you're going to go back on the streets. And then he freaked out. This is my stuff. Okay, come on. You're a grown person. Let's look through your stuff. And then he just freaked out and went back out into the streets. And so that's a perfect example where it could have been, hey, you know what? I'm a veteran too, or I appreciate you as a veteran in the service. Just for your safety, how about you open your bags and you show me what's inside, just for your safety and the other veterans' safety. I'm sure nothing's bad in there. Let's just look through it together. And how you're doing today? Want to go grab a meal after this? I can't wait to connect you with all the other veterans in this facility. It could have been that tone or that way, and maybe he would have stayed, but they freaked him out and he just left. But again, that person, maybe they're there for so long and they're just dealing with people, and they had another veteran that just gave him a hard time, and they're just, hey, this is my job. I just want to get you in and out, and not just making people a number or a statistic. And showing that they are human is so critical, because you can have the best facility and the best resources when people are like, oh, it's just words, but words carry so much weight, especially when you're working with somebody who went through something so traumatic. And it's like the receptors in their brain are just, it's like a little hair, and it's so fragile, and it's not it can hit a nerve really, really easily.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way street. It's communication, but we can only own our piece of it. And having the awareness that the way in which we communicate, you talked about a receptor, it's going to be received by the other person. And if you're communicating with kindness versus being transactional, that receptor is going to respond differently. And that doesn't guarantee anything, but it just increases the likelihood that things are going to go in a positive way. There can be a positive contagion. And all you can do is have that self-awareness, maybe pause and think about how you communicate and the potential impact of it. And that's really all you can do.
And so many people that went through trauma, they're the head of this, a CEO. You got so many successful people that went through recovery, that are currently in recovery. They went through shit and they got better, and they're so strong willed and minded. So everything I've went through, all these resources and just my trauma as well, I would have done the exact same thing again. I would have went through everything again because it made me
Wow.
such a better individual. I'm so much stronger. Anything I feel like I can put my mind to, I can accomplish. I ran the New York City Marathon last year. I was able to donate bone marrow to a 2-year-old. I started up a couple businesses, especially one of the craziest businesses I feel like to start up is a cannabis dispensary that we opened up about 9 months ago. So would I have been able to do all these things if I didn't go through all this trauma? Probably not. Absolutely not. Because I feel like if I went through that, I could do anything. I could accomplish anything in life. And I also got to see the real sides of life, and it just really humbled me. And I just feel like it made me a better person. That trauma brought me to where I am today, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world. It just made me a really awesome fighter. And I have so much love and compassion for other people. I get to listen to other people's stories and see all these really cool and interesting things. And yeah, I wouldn't have changed it for the world. Everybody's looking like, well, I could have never got to there. I could have never been that person, this, that. I mean, I dropped out of college. I did the Marines and stuff. I feel like if I can do it, anybody can do it. I always have self-doubt all the time. I get frustrated at some vets in the back of my mind. The baby's crying, then a vet calls me and they're looking for housing. I'm like, figure it out. No, I'm not like saying this to them, but in my mind, like, just
Yeah.
figure it out yourself. What are you doing? You're a grown person. Stop complaining. So yes, I am a human. I have bad thoughts, good thoughts. I cry, I laugh. I am not perfect. I mess up with my business more times than I care to admit. I've done 1,000 wrong things to find one good thing or one correct thing. People are like, oh, somebody owns a nonprofit or owns a business. They got their shit together. Absolutely not. I still look at my daughter who's 10 months. I'm like, I feel like you're more mature than I am. So it is so okay to feel these emotions and feel like you are not put together because we're all just figuring it out. But at the same time, if you really put your heart in it and you are trying and you believe in what you're doing and you think it's the right thing, then go for it. I always say if you're going to do it in front of your parents or in front of a judge, then
Yeah.
it should be good to go.
I love that. I love that. And your journey is remarkable, and it's so heartening to hear that you would do it the same way despite all of the difficulties and the trauma, and to see that you've pulled so much goodness and strength and resilience from it while still being very human. But just amazing stories.
I messed
And no,
up
I
so
think,
many times. So many
yeah,
times
I
I've messed.
know.
I mean, I look at it like if you learn from it, it's not a mess up. If you're,
Right.
I don't know, if you built a car, how many times like that was wrong, this is wrong. Was that a mess up? Or you're just learning to perfect something or do something better, or just learn? You got to fail. It's good to fail because if you learn from that failure, it's never a failure.
Yeah.
I know that's like a oxymoron.
No, I believe that deeply too. And I think that's an important thing is everything that you do, whether it goes the way you expected it to or not, is an opportunity to learn something. And it can sound cheesy or you can really believe it.
The harder the failure, the more I've learned from it. But I know I'm never going to do that again. So because if somebody you just watch on a show and they're like, this is the do's or the don'ts, but if it really happens to you, or if you lost money because of that situation, like, I am definitely not going to do that again.
Yeah, that stuck.
I know that's definitely not the path. So let me try this path. Oh, that's not the path. How about this one? Okay, that's the path. There we go. I got it correct. So it's just
Awesome.
tinkering with things and tinkering with life.
That's great. I want to pivot to the segment of the podcast that I call It's My Podcast. So there will be music. And I just wanted to know if there were a song that you could put in a time capsule for all times for future generations, what would it be and why? And just to explain a little bit more, I feel like music really taps into our humanity. We've talked about humanity quite a bit, a lot like storytelling. And so that's why I really like to understand what music moves people and share it with the listeners. So what song would you pick?
So this is a song that when you're like, how far in your past can you recall when you're a child? And I remember like literally in almost like the crib setting. That's how far past. And I can't even remember I just ate for breakfast. But when I was crying, the way to soothe me was Sweet Baby James by James Taylor. First of all, like, nobody's going to argue against me that this guy doesn't have one of the most amazing voices. I feel like when you're like, oh, like this and that and the chaos and you hear that song and I'm just like, it's going to be okay. Life will be just fine. That's definitely my artist and my song of choice.
Yeah, his voice is amazing. And I'm an acoustic guitar player, not anywhere at any level that's worth mentioning, but love it. Love the sound of acoustic guitar. Just love the ability to be able to tinker around with it, and his guitar playing, literally the chord striking a chord that you can't even explain, and it stops you in your tracks.
Yeah, when you hear a song and yes, you hear the song and you know the lyrics, but it brings you back to something else. That's a magical song right there.
Yeah. We will definitely add it to the Spotify playlist, which I'm excited about because I love James Taylor and I specifically love that song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just to start to bring us full circle here, the work you're doing is just so important and inspirational. Can you tell people more about where they can find you?
So Backpacks for Life, you can find us on our website of Backpacks for Life. We do all different kinds of events and social media as well. Backpacks for Life on Facebook and Instagram and a little bit of TikTok. Our website is really where we post things, and that's where you can learn more about us. We bocce events, a golf outing. We do all different kinds of fun fundraisers, cornhole contests. And then if people sign up on our email list, that's also on our website, or just follow us on social media, they can find all the ways to get involved, not only just with fundraisers, but also with giving back. So helping us construct backpacks with supplies, toiletries, and resources at our storage facility, handing out backpacks at events, working with other veterans, or maybe we might not be the organization for you, but I could direct you to an organization because it's not about us. It's about all the individual organizations, not just veteran organizations, just people helping people. And you want to throw an organization label on top of it, great. But I'm here to help you get connected to resources, not just ours. And also love to just shout out the dispensary, Golden Door Dispensary in Jersey City. Just an amazing place for healing and helping people find a holistic approach towards therapy and just enjoying yourself. Sometimes cannabis could be used just to enjoy and an alternative to alcohol and other substances that people could be using. And I just wanted to throw a little shout out there because that took us years of work, and it really just embodies the nonprofit and how I just love to help other individuals, listen to individuals' amazing stories, and just another fun thing that we've got to go through. But yeah, Backpacks for Life, you can find us on our website, social media, and then definitely if you're in the Jersey City area, check out our store, Golden Door Dispensary in Newark Ave and the Five Corners.
Beautiful. So I'll make sure all that information is available to people in the show notes, and really brings, I said full circle before, but full circle back to just the warmth, kindness, how genuine you are, your sincerity about what you do, and just being of service, however that might be. Inspired by you continuously, and just really so grateful that you could be here on the podcast. So thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it very much, Auntie.
All right. So everyone, that brings this episode of Stories We Haven't Shared to a close. I believe stories are our humanity waiting to be shared, and listening makes it possible. Thanks so much for being here by our virtual campfire today. Until next time, and thanks again so much to Brett. Take care.
Take care.